All right, so we've got this story of like the Brunei hotels, like all these hotels that are being boycotted now because of they're being owned by the Sultan of Brunei. I think that's like the leader in Brunei, and basically Brunei have introduced this pretty barbaric law, making being gay, punishable by execution. So there'll be not just execution, they'll be stoned, which is like pretty bad, and like. So yeah, Ellen DeGeneres, George Clooney, they've spoken out against these hotels that have been owned. They're all across the Western world. We've got stuff in LA, even the UK as well. So what do you think? Do you think these should be boycotted? Would you boycott these hotels, Colin? Would you?
Yeah, well, when there's other hotels available, I'm not going to go to these ones owned by the Sultan of Brunei.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, it's the element of choice. So like, if this is the only one... Like, I don't think me staying there is going to make too much, like, of a difference, or, like, if there was other choices, I wouldn't, but if this was the only choice, like, yeah, I would, because I know that I don't support his actions, and, like...
Well, if you think about it, though, there's arguments against boycotting them, and it's like, if you take, for instance, the Dorchester that's in London, UK...
Yeah.
The people that work there... are just working class people that are from Britain who probably don't think gay people are bad.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, if you run these guys out of business, you're running these like innocent people out of business to an extent, because people are going to like be out of their jobs because no one's going to these hotels, and at the end of the day, like, who's really suffering?
I don't know, because. Okay, these guys will be probably... I don't know about the hotel industry, whether or not there's, like, other, like, lots of job openings and there's lots of opportunities. But, like, these aren't unskilled workers. A lot of these people would have, decent amount of skills, like, say, the restaurant staff and stuff. So I think the morality of it overcomes that. And I think for most people, they will not be thinking about... the people there. I understand the point completely, but for me, I'm still boycotting these places.
You see, I mean, when there's choice available, yeah, I'll probably pick somewhere else. But the thing is, like, the UK and the USA alike both have they've both got very comfortable relationships with Brunei. Like, they're in like trade agreements.
Yeah.
They're very good friends with this country. So I think if you want to hit Brunei where it hurts most, it's not by targeting hotels that probably make up like a fraction of their profits, but it's by putting pressure on your politicians to kind of like slack your relationships with this country.
I totally agree, but I think that I don't know if politicians will do that. We've seen that in places like Saudi Arabia with politicians and stuff like that. We know the atrocities that are doing in other countries, but politicians are still... Well, we're still supporting Saudi Arabia by giving them weapons, same with the US and stuff like that. We're still giving them financial support. So I think a more realistic way when, I don't...
Does it do anything, though? Is the Sultan of Brunei going to go, there's not very many British people going to this British hotel, I'm going to change my opinion on gay people? I just don't think so.
But I don't think politicians will actually do anything. That's the thing, personally. So I think a more realistic... for like the everyday person, I think a more realistic thing to do is to boycott.
I mean, I think it is quite possible for the UK government to do something. I think USA is a different story, but... I do think it's very possible to cut ties with Brunei.
Yeah, maybe. I just think it's more realistic to do that.
But does it do anything? Is it effective? I don't think it's very effective. If I was a Sultan of Brunei, some rich billionaire, and I found out that a couple of hotels are running out of business, it's like, okay. But if I'm being told that like the people like Britain, a country that I have like a very strong bilateral relationship with, are threatening to put sanctions and cut ties with me, that's really going to like change my mind.
I agree, but I'm not sure about the state of relations between Britain and Brunei.
They've got a very good relationship.
I don't think that will be cut by the British government over this, to be honest. And
I mean, I think if there was an issue to cut relations over, I think it would very much be to do with human rights abuse. And if we're talking about the stoning of gay people, I think that's up there.
I agree, but I think it happens in other countries as well, and we aren't cutting relationships with them. So I think a more realistic thing for the everyday person to do, as I said, is just to do their bit, and also like maybe that no one's going to this hotel for this reason. That might give the attention of MPs in that way as well.
But it's like, why is it ineffective?
Why is it ineffective? Because it's clear that the UK government don't care enough because about these human rights abuses. Although we're supposed to be this country
with the social media traction that this is getting, like this is like proper viral stuff. Like this is getting like millions and millions of support.
Yeah.
That amount of pressure, if applied to the government, I think could be used to force them to reconsider their relationship with this country.
Yeah, I think so, but that pressure is coming through this boycotting. I'm imagining it's big high-profile stars like Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah, so if Ellen DeGeneres instead put our government are engaging in joint exercises with the Brunei army, we're helping them with trade, contact your local congressman and tell them to do it.
Yeah, I take the point, but personally, I don't think Ellen DeGeneres would do something like that. I mean,
I don't think she would.
Yeah, but this just seemed, and also, I don't know if people would go through the effort of contacting because I think boycotting a hotel, that's pretty simple for everyone to do. Like,
I mean, it's very easy to say you're boycotting a hotel when you probably were never going to go to that hotel in the first place.
And
so if you actually care about it, instead of everyone saying I'm boycotting this hotel, that, let's be honest, it's very unlikely they would have went in the first place. If they actually care about it, they would be doing more proactive things like contacting your MP and stuff.
So, yeah. Yeah, I also think it's a case of the British public as well. I think we do care about this, we do care about it at its heart, but I don't think we care enough to actually do something about it. And I think that's really strange. I think it's just part of global culture. It's sort of us and them thing. If it was in this country, we'd be more than happy to speak up about it. We'd be more than happy to write to our MPs and stuff like that. But I think the fact that it's happening thousands of miles away in Brunei, unfortunately, I think it just means that people aren't as invested morally in a case like this, and aren't invested into the poor people who are facing the consequences of this.
Can you say that, considering that it's gained such large social media attention?
Yeah, but the social media attention is for boycotting these hotels.
Yeah, but it's to boycott hotels, but it's for gay rights in Brunei.
I don't think it would get as much social media attention if it was the write to your MP and stuff like that, because I don't think people would actually write to their MP, because I don't think people care enough. Like, I can retweet this tweet from Ellen DeGeneres, and that's my part done, and I think that's what a lot of these people are doing. That's
not just apply pressure to your MP, not just write to your MP, just apply pressure to them by retweeting it, saying this is who you're in deals with. It's not that hard, because it's not going viral because people like boycotting hotels. It's going viral for gay rights.
I think so, but even the MP thing, I'm not sure how much power MPs have.
Or just sign a petition.
Yeah, petitions could work as well. I still is it a trade? We have a trading relationship with Brunei, right?
Yes.
So I do not think it's in the ethos of the government to unfortunately prioritize morality over economics. I think we've seen that, as I said beforehand, on many occasions, and that's why I don't think pressing an MP and things like that is a realistic option, because if when it goes to Parliament, I don't think anything really is going to be done. I can't see it being passed a law that we boycott Brunei anymore. I mean, unfortunately,
maybe with a Tory government,
exactly. Maybe another government we would, but unfortunately at the moment, I do not think that's the case.
Cool.
That was pretty interesting. Catch up with this case. I think we'll see a lot more of this in future, and Brunei's response, whether or not this does anything. Okay, let's talk about something a bit close to home. In Scotland now, it's a pretty horrific case. We've heard about a 6-year-old girl, Alicia McPhail, being pretty brutally murdered by a 16-year-old. A lot of people listening to this right now will be 16 years old. It's kind of mad to think that someone could do that at our age, but there are people out there. And sexual assault committed, torture. She's found with over 100 injuries, brutal injuries. So it's shown that this just wasn't like a mistake, really. This was a real, like, a lot of effort was put into this from Aaron Campbell. So, and recently he was adjudged to life in prison with, I think it was parole. He's, minimum sentence for parole after 27 years, I think it was. So yeah, that's won't be I can't see Aaron Campbell getting out anytime soon. But what do you think about this? Do you think, this is a child we're talking about? Do you think the punishment was justified for Aaron Campbell?
I think it's to an extent. I think it's too lenient.
Yeah.
I don't think we should give someone like that the chance to parole. Like, it is pretty. Like, it's pretty disgusting what he's done. Like,
the judge, however, did say that, like, most likely you won't be accepted for parole. You are most likely going to spend your life in jail. But to be honest, advocates of capital punishment, they will be coming out right now, and I can understand this case over anyone. This is really shocking stuff right here from a child, and on a child as well, and the brutal nature of it. I mean, but do we have to consider the fact that he was a child? Like, do you think he really had, like, the autonomy, the processing to do something like this?
I mean, when you're a child, like, I don't know, maybe you think when you're like 8 or 9, maybe if you steal something from the shop, like a packet of crisps or something, that's all right, and that's fine. But there's, like, even at 8, I wouldn't expect a boy to think it would be okay to kidnap, rape, then kill a little girl. So I think, especially as someone the same age as us, like me, if I was 16 a few months ago, and I could not imagine, like, in any sense, like, me thinking that was okay, or anyone I knew that or know that is 16 thinking that's okay.
I understand that, but yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying, but do you accept that a 16-year-old is probably more impressionable to things like violent video games, violent films, violent media, and things like that, which we know that this kid was consuming?
I don't think that affects.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, watching violent movies, watching violent video games plays a part in him thinking that it's okay to rape and kill little girls.
Yeah. It was shown that he doesn't have any mental illnesses either. He claimed to have anxiety and depression. This was proved not to be true by a doctor. Do you think that would, be a mitigating circumstance of mental illness in a crime like this?
Yeah, if someone's mentally ill, that is 100% a mitigating factor, because you're not 100% in control.
And thus should not be punished. But
well, you should still be punished, but
no, like as severely and held as accountable. It's a hard one, because I still think if he was seemed to be mentally ill, he will spend life, away from society. But I think that would have been somewhere like a asylum or somewhere like that, where it wasn't the punishment, it was more the protection aim of punishment that was trying to be filled, because this guy is really a threat to society right now. But he was seen to be drunk, so do you think he really was a threat? Because do you think this was a one-off action? Do you think Aaron Campbell was capable of doing more in future?
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't get caught, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he would have done it again, because it takes a lot for you to bring yourself to do that in the first place.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of boundaries of, like, fear of getting caught and, like, to prevent you doing it from the first place. But once you do and you get away with it, that kind of all goes away, in my opinion.
The thing is, what's really kind of scary about it, he didn't seem to have any fear of getting caught. Not getting caught, but because in his recollection, he was, explaining how it was almost amusing that the police hadn't caught him by now and stuff like that. It's like a really sick and twisted guy. He seemed to be, and, like, he described how this wasn't opportunistic. He saw the girl and he just took her. It was instincts for him. So there's something really gone wrong here. I don't know if it's nature or nurture. What do you think? Do you think this is hardwired into Aaron Campbell, or do you think it's more? Do you think him being a bad person is his fault?
Yeah, I do. If I don't know, maybe if he was brought up, like, in a society where there's very little law enforcement, there's very little opportunity, his, like, yeah, maybe. But at the end of the day, this guy was brought up in, like, pretty privileged circumstances. Like, yeah, okay, maybe his parents separated and they were, like, not very upper class folk. But at the end of the day, you've grown up in, like, quite a good country, and you're surrounded by people that genuinely are quite nice.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a product of like circumstance. So I think, yeah. And also, like, if you look at it, takes a lot it takes a lot for someone to be able to do this like at that age. So there's like a murder case of someone called John Venables.
Oh yeah, the kids.
Like it's a couple of kids, and they just killed a 2-year-old. And John Venables, like, he served his jail time.
He was 10, though, was he?
Yeah, he was 10. He served his jail time. He came out. He got his identity changed, and he's back in jail. He's not reformed. Like, he's not reformed whatsoever, and that started from the age of 10. So to say, it was just like a mistake of young age, it's a flaw in their character. Like, they are dangerous to society, and there's no reason that they should be let out.
Yeah. So do you think, because the thing is, Aaron Campbell in a jail right now. I assume he's in a jail right now. Yeah. Do you think that is helping the situation in any way? Do we think we should be aiming to reform this child? Do you think there's any hope of reforming him? And do you think that hope is something that we should look for?
Yeah. I think, like, you should be taking measures to find out why he did what he did.
Yeah.
Like, kind of, like, I don't know, therapy and stuff, trying to get it out of him, like, what led to him doing such vile acts, like, if there was, like, any incidents in particular that led him to this. And, of course, you should try to change him for the better, but I don't think he deserves a second chance at fully fledged, free life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very sad, really, because this is a 16-year-old. At the end of the day, he's already my age. A year off you, like, this kid won't live a proper life from now on. But it's his own actions. It's a really sick thing that he's done, to be honest. And I'm quite happy that he's facing the consequences for that at the moment. Mm-hmm. All right, so on to our last thing here. We did a little new format. I don't know if you guys have noticed. We're going to talk about racism in football, which has been happening quite a lot. We'll talk about some of the measures that we might be able to take and the stuff around it. So racism in football, we see in Scotland even, sectarianism. I think there's a degree of racism there, in terms of the religious divide and other reasons too, and Irish and British and stuff like that. But right now it's happening, our classic racism that we see, portrayed and we're learning from as a kid, white and blacks right now. And it's happening to a lot of young black footballers at the moment. It's really, really tragic, and it's happening really now in 2019. It's coming back again. We saw recently Raheem Sterling and Danny Rose being racially abused at a Montenegro match. And young kid, 19 years old, it's tragic really. Moise Keane for Juventus the other day, getting a Cagliari match. He was abused pretty much the whole game. And I think what was quite interesting about this was one of his teammates, Leonardo Bonucci, basically put the blame 50-50 on Moise Keane and the supporters, which I think was very interesting, because Moise Keane basically had a celebration, was almost taunting them, because they were giving him like stick the whole game. Do you think it was justified that he did that? That he would, the celebration was almost arms out, things like that. Do you think something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you have to endure like racism for a whole game, I do not see, of course, you could be the bigger man and, not, but you can't really blame him for doing what he did, can you?
No, I can't. And do you think the stick then, because Bonucci said that, the stick was because of the celebration, do you think this, if that was the case, the fans after he did this celebration, this taunting celebration, do you think their abuse was justified in any way?
I mean, when you're saying the racism was a response to being taunted, I think that in itself is quite flawed, because maybe you can stick him with some, insults, but when you resort to like race, which is a factor which people just cannot help, like they're born the way they are, it's just a low blow, isn't it? There's no like intelligence or wit or like sharpness that goes into that kind of insult. It's just like it's unintelligent, it's not funny, and
Yeah, I think Italian football has had a problem with that for a while. But if we talk about the Danny Rose and Raheem Sterling thing, like Danny Rose came out yesterday, we're recording on Friday. He basically said he's fed up with the game. It's pretty tragic. This is a top level footballer. He said he's fed up with the game because constant racist abuse. He's had this a few times in his career now, and he basically said that these countries, these football association boards, are being fined what I spend a night at. It's a little bit of a flex, but anyway, it's like, do you think? Personally, I don't think the punishment for these things is high enough. I know UEFA are coming out making these comments, the UEFA president, like referees need to be braver and things like that. They're saying that they want to cut it out, but their actions are not really speaking loud. What do you think? Do you think a financial, imposing a financial sanction is correct for these people?
I mean, I don't really know what a football association can do about racism in their fans. Like, the issue here isn't that they think it's okay to be like that in football. It's the issue is that they think it's just okay, period. Like,
Yeah, I guess.
it's how they've been brought up. So I think the issue needs to be tackled from like the bottom up and not by the football associations. I think it's a bit...
Yeah, I agree.
And like, if you get into a whole free speech argument, like, at the end of the day, I'm quite libertarian on social politics, so I don't think that even if someone says something completely horrible, people should get necessarily like jail time or punishment for it. But I think if you want it to go away, you need to tackle it from where it starts.
I guess what they're doing though is they're saying to these football, like Montenegrin Football Association, the UEFA are saying to them, right, we're finding you this XYZ. Say, I think it was about £50,000, which is pretty crazy, crazily low for what happened. We're finding you this. You now need to do something about this. You need to make sure this is out of the game, not necessarily racism is eradicated. Do you think it's the Football Association's responsibility to eradicate racism totally, or just from the game?
Yeah, just from the game, because you can't ask a football association to get racism out of schools or, you know, the workplace.
Yeah.
That's not their job.
Yeah. So do you think even things like stadium bans and things like that, do you think they are effective and in getting racism out of the game? Because, you know, at the end of the day, you can't ban everyone. You know, this is probably quite part of the footballing culture in these countries.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard.
Well, yeah, you have the term like 90-minute bigot, which is people walk into the, like, once a week on like a Saturday or Sunday, people walk into the stadium and because of the atmosphere, they think it's okay.
Yeah.
But to an extent, like, I guess the atmosphere could be controlled better by the associations.
But we don't want to dampen a football atmosphere.
Exactly.
No.
But
yeah, and I think people go in there, it's almost like you're now in the you know, it's almost like you're in a simulation. Nothing matters when you're in that stadium, and then you're out and you're back to normal life. I guess it's kind of escapism, and that's really interesting. I guess we'll see racism in football for a long time unless football associations really try their hardest and impose serious sanctions. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. We hope it goes away though, and we hope Danny Rose, you know, can keep on playing, because this is really, really sad. That's going to be the end of the episode though. We've tried a new format. It's more like we go over the, you know, week's news and we talk about a few stories. Let us know if you guys like that more, or you want us to go back to the old format where we talk about more broader topics. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Instagram at Podcast, and Twitter. I'll try and put a few links to some articles I've been reading. Subscribe and review on iTunes, and I'll see you later.